So as we start looking at notes 1-6, which we're going to look at multiplying and dividing real numbers. Before this, we looked at adding and subtracting. And the rules are different than adding and subtracting. However, my question out to the side is when you multiply and divide real numbers, are the rules the same or different? And the good news is the rules are going to be the same. So yes, the rules are the same. Which is exciting. So once we get our rules down and we understand our rules, it's going to be the same for both multiplying and dividing. So I'm going to start with one example. If we look at multiplying, if we have a positive times a positive, we get a positive answer. And that will always be the case. Positive 2 times positive 3 is a positive 6. And the rules are the same for when we're dividing. If we have a positive divided by a positive, we get a positive. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Rules are the same if we're multiplying and or if we are dividing. Let's go ahead and talk about what if we have a positive times a negative number? What do we get? We get a negative number. And it doesn't matter if the first number is the positive or the first number could be the negative. As long as one number is negative and one number is positive, you will always get a negative answer. And the rules are the same for dividing. It doesn't matter if the top number is the positive and the bottom is the negative, or vice versa. If the negative number is on the top and the positive is on the bottom, both of these will get you a negative answer. So a positive times a negative is always going to be a negative, and a negative divided by a positive is always going to be a negative. And when I mean always, it's always true. Let's talk about what if our last scenario would be if we had two negative numbers that we are multiplying by. And this one kind of throws everyone, but a negative times a negative actually gets you a positive. And the same will be true if we're dividing. If we had a negative number divided by a negative number, we will always get a positive answer. So that explains and discusses our positives and negatives and what happens when we are multiplying and dividing. I want to talk about reciprocal because reciprocal is going to be very important in Algebra 1. And so let's talk about what the reciprocal is. Let's just say that I have A divided by B. The reciprocal is by flipping it. B divided by A. I can't put an equal sign between them. Their value is not equal. Their value is not equal. So I put the word is. But what I do want you to know and why the reciprocal is so important is because if I have A divided by B and I multiply by the reciprocal, B divided by A, what's super cool about this is A times B would just be AB. And on the bottom, we would just get BA. And we learned in the last lesson, I think, or maybe it was 2 lessons ago, anything divided by itself is 1. And A divided by A is 1. And B divided by B is 1. So when you take a fraction and multiply it by the reciprocal, your answer here is 1. And that's going to be super helpful down the road with Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. We want to do a quick little with square roots, just to make sure we're good to go with these. We talked about them in notes 1-3. But if I'm looking at my square roots here, we know the square root of 169, that one you might have to punch in your calculator, but it is 13. But I also just wanted to talk about if the negative symbol is on the outside of the radical sign, we know that this answer is going to be a negative. And we have perfect squares here, so the square root of 25 is the whole number 5. And we're going to divide it by the square root of 49, which is the whole number 7. So it's negative 5 divided by 7. Remember, when you take the square root of a number, you actually get rid of that radical sign. And last but not least, this symbol in front might be new to some of you. It's called the plus minus symbol, meaning it can be positive or negative. And again, something we're going to learn more down the road. But if we have the square root of 100, we know that square root of 100 is 10. And that symbol in front, that plus minus, we just literally keep it there. It means positive 10 and negative 10. Plus 10 minus 10. So you can just write it as plus minus 10. Plus minus 10 is the same as just 10 and negative 10. But instead of writing them both out, you can just write the plus minus symbol. That's it, short notes.